Eddie Griffin died early Friday morning when he drove his SUV into a moving train in Houston, Texas. Officials say the vehicle was driven through a railroad crossing barrier before it impacted the train and burst into flames.
Today's feature is one you wish you can tell in reverse and skip the part where this 25-year-old young man with so much future ahead of him didn't die before he could see his potential finally hit its mark. A lesson on how important it is to appreciate life no matter your status in it, knowing that money and success does not equal happiness, that dreams coming true does not cleanse the struggles walling your heart. Griffin is the definition of a lion in sheep clothing, and that by all accounts, if he loves and cares about you, he's the nicest, most loyal person you could meet. On the inside of that was a kid that harbored a lot of his frustrations that erupted when challenged personally or on behalf of a person he held dear. As a basketball player, even in those times, he propelled himself to heights you only hoped to as an amateur. From dominating in high school to McDonald's All-American and dominating in college to an NBA lottery draft pick. But this is where Griffin was met with challenges he may have not been ready for as yet. Rest in peace to Eddie Griffin, and here's why his growth, not his life, was stunted. Salute to Skinny Jules for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Ash, get him. Eddie is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and in high school was successfully following a long list of Philadelphia players before him that made their own special impact on the game and left the blueprint behind for Eddie of what it took to be great coming from that environment. As a person, Eddie struggled to figure out that balance. With no father figure in the home for most of his youth outside of Marvin and Evelyn Powell, his older half-brother's family, whom he stayed with close to 5 years, Eddie would find it hard to deal with his anger and emotions, constantly getting into fights with boys from the neighborhood. After his growth spurt around the 9th grade, he decided to take basketball more serious as a way to bottle those emotions while making an escape path for his family. But those emotions would refuse to stay sealed forever, and some would say they were the fuel to all his growth stunts. Stunt number 1, substance abuse. Beginning this story at the end of his life, Eddie's emotional struggles finally caught up to him as he turned to the worst option in dealing with it, alcohol. Griffin mysteriously died after driving his car into a train carrying plastics that exploded so bad he could only be recognized through dental records. At 25 years old, no one could figure why it would seem he took his own life. Found in his system was traces of alcohol 3 times the legal limit, which was his substance of choice to help deal with everything going on in his new NBA life. He was no longer enjoying days in college spent with his close friends 24/7 and a goal ahead of him that made him stay on the straight path. He was now faced with the professional side of basketball that included grown men he couldn't or chose not to relate to, and long days with idle time on his hands, along with the money to do whatever he wanted. But on the court, Griffin wasn't seeing the growth he imagined he would, nor the production that could have made him come out of his shell, or at least calm the racing back and forth thoughts in his mind that couldn't otherwise find a way to release themselves. His first few seasons in the league were underwhelming for Griffin, who entered the Houston Rockets team in rebuild mode and moving on from the big man-centered offense to a more faster, exciting guard attack in Steve Francis and Cuttino Mobley. Eddie was expected to fit in perfectly alongside those two as a young but exciting team to watch. And youth is what they showed pretty much for 2 straight seasons, missing the playoffs. At 6'10" and just 19 years old, Eddie was expected to bring a high-motored, inside-outside game and a player that could spot up and shoot it off pick and rolls or catch lobs off drives from Mobley, Francis, and Moochie Norris. But Eddie struggled. He wasn't used to having 2 guards that basically kept the ball in their hands for the entire play, only to make a difficult shot at the end that didn't allow Griffin to touch the ball for plays on plays. He was used to being more involved on offense, and in Houston, it just wasn't the right time. He averaged 9 points a game and 7 rebounds, shooting 33% from 3, attempting almost 4 a game. In 26 minutes per, that's not too bad. In his second year, it was almost identical, but with expectations placed on him to produce as a lottery pick and not living up to them, along with not having the connection to the team who all remembered him as a closed-off guy that raced to the showers to leave after games, he turned to drinking heavily. He would miss team practices, engage in fights with teammates, and show lack of effort and disinterest. Signs in hindsight were all too clear. The team released him in December 2003. He signed with the New Jersey Nets but would never play a game for them, instead entering rehab to help with his obvious alcohol problems. Minnesota took a chance on him after signing him to not 1 but 2 contracts, a 1-year deal and another 3-year deal, although his production dropped off every season in the league. His substance abuse continued, unfortunately, and even resulted in a first car accident he was involved in, with claims he was drunk and watching an adult DVD while driving. In early 2007, he was released by the Timberwolves as well. In August of that year, he would meet another car crash that would take his life. With no tire marks that showed he tried to avoid hitting the train, reports are that losing his life were the results of his own doing. Substance abuse is just not the way. It paints a false image of nothing else matters and that nothing can hurt you, but it's only for the moment. Griffin's final moments will never be 100% known or understood, unfortunately. Stunt number 2, leaving school early. Going back in the story, I think Eddie's second growth stunt was the fact that he just wasn't ready for the lifestyle that he would eventually be thrusted into as the youngest player ever to play for the Houston Rockets. Leaving high school, Griffin was everything. He had big games against some of the best competition, and although quiet and seemingly shy, he always rose to the challenges. After being named a McDonald's All-American and a top 2 player in the country, Eddie decided to attend Seton Hall because he wanted to play with close friends Andre Barrett and Marcus Toniel, whom North Carolina wouldn't take, so Griffin chose Seton Hall. In his first season, the team started off great, winning 5 of its first games. But the upperclassmen resented the freshmen coming in and taking over and began to challenge them, eating the team away from its inside. Junior Ty Shine refused to pass Eddie the ball in the game, and Griffin took it out on him after, blacking his eye. The team fell apart, and by the end, he knew that coming back there was all but over. Along with that, his older half-brother had passed away from a heart attack by the end of the season, and Eddie felt he needed to financially step up. It was the last domino in his decision, and he chose to leave. In hindsight, he regretted the decision, even mentioning it to Barrett and Toniel. Things like how he missed college and wish he never left early. Newfound friends, family, and being 19 with millions were too much for Griffin and led him down the wrong path. Had he stayed in school, he would have developed the things on and off the floor to help him avoid what he'd later struggle with. He would have also possibly been in a better situation than Houston. Stunt number 3, guidance and direction. 2 things Eddie needed but didn't have at any point in his life and career. His father leaving when he was an infant, his mother working as much as she could to provide, being catapulted into basketball stardom so young, and a personality that didn't allow new people in any instance. This made Eddie inside had to go at life pretty much alone to make all the mistakes and learn from them, or not. Unfortunately, his mistakes took his life and cut down the hopes of his entire family. He would constantly get into fights in high school and even wasn't allowed to finish there on campus because of it, but through correspondence courses. The same thing happened in college with Ty Shine and forced him to feel as though he had to leave. He didn't have a strong father figure to pull him aside and teach him right from wrong, and he didn't allow other grown men into his life, especially at the pro level. Without the tools to navigate, Eddie crashed and it was all over. All in all, I think Eddie Griffin's story is one that needs to be told as much as it can be in order to help other young men without the guidance to get through situations similar to his. He was a great high school and college player and needed just a little more focus and effort to get him over the top and excel as a pro as well. The right guidance and directional help with his life and career could have helped that. Unfortunately, receiving it never came. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.